All right, for context, I actually have no idea what the composition looks like on these cameras because I'm just doing it on my phone. So I'm just actually doing a setup for a podcast that I'm recording tomorrow. But I just wanted to do a test on these microphones I got strapped to my chest. So first off, this is the Hollyland Lark M2 and this is the DJI mic Gen 1. I'm recording into onboard, but I'm also got it recording into my iPhone 13 Pro, which is just propped up by the bin over there. It's got the receiver just attached to the side. I've got my iPad here, which I will then connect this to. Now this is the cheapest wireless microphone that I found on Amazon, which costs £10. You can connect to USB-C, it's got one mic going to it. So I wanted to see what the difference is and if you get what you pay for, because little things that I noticed, here's only 20 meters range, whereas the Lark M2 and the DJI mics, I think it's up to 200 meters. So it's like 10 times the range. But I never use it at that range. I mean, 20 meters is a good amount of distance. I mean, from one end to the other end of the studio, that's probably, I'd say, about 10, 20 meters, maybe 15. I'll measure it up after. I'll use the LiDAR sensor to do a measurement of this. But at the same time, I'm recording it on board here because these two microphones are obviously wireless and they're going to actually kind of be very close together. So when they're close together, you might get some signal interference. And that's one of the benefits of actually having the DJI mics, because you can actually record on board. Whereas the Hollyland Lark M2, you can't. It goes straight in through wireless into the receiver, and that's that. So if you get a signal dropout, and that's it, the sound's gone. Whereas the DJI mics, you got a backup audio, which is on board, which is pretty good. I'm just gonna quickly unbox this. Now, I genuinely wonder if this would even work, because I think now they're actually so close to each other touching, there's obviously going to be some wireless signal interference. Not the most glamorous test. Just iPad propped up on the floor down there, iPhone propped up on the floor down there. But this should be a fair test. So now I'm actually going to move the Hollyland. I'm going to go have a slightly different angle just so I have a bit more interest to it. So I'm going to move the iPhone. So far in the video, I've just been talking about my usual level of speaking. They're all attached to the center of my chest, all at the same distance, all going directly wirelessly into each iPad or iPhone or Apple device, I should say. Now I'm walking around deliberately to turning my back towards the camera, and that is because these wireless signals are quite heavily dependent on line of sight. So as I'm facing towards the iPad with the cheap receiver over there, the iPhone with the DJI, and my other iPhone, the Hollyland Lark M2, I'm now turning my back to them. So I've actually blocked off the line of sight. I'm going to move further down to the other side of the room. So obviously my iPad and the iPhone 13 is still over there with the DJI mics, as well as the cheap wireless Amazon mics. The Hollylands are slightly closer to me because it was composed slightly differently. So let's see how this audio is being picked up. I'm walking around behind the backdrop with my back turned facing towards the window. So now the mics have completely lost line of sight. And with the cheap Amazon microphones only having a range of about 20 meters, I do wonder how this is coming out. So I've got the cheap Amazon £10 microphone over here. This one's actually connected via USB-C into my iPad Pro. I've got the DJI mics here. These are the Gen 1s recording on board, and it's also recording into the iPhone 13 Pro, transmitting over into there. And here I've got the Hollyland Lark M2. This one's going into my iPhone 15 Pro via USB-C connection. The room I'm in the moment, I'm actually in the hotel reception. There's a loud music playing, people talking around me with air conditioning. The microphone's held to chest height. This is a good test to see how it isolates my voice. Talking directly into the microphones now, so if I was actually to hand this over to do any testimonials at events, let's see how the sound quality comes out. And I do wonder if there's any signal interference between them, because I'm holding all three microphones closely together as you see here. But this is the only one recording into the actual microphone itself, so this would be the only one recoverable if there is any signal interference. So what you've just heard is the audio samples that I recorded last month when I was setting up for a podcast that I shot. I've only just heard the audio samples just now. I no longer have the mics with me to redo any tests, but I did notice that during those tests, the mics were kind of banging on each other. So I actually mic'd myself up with the mics too close together. So if I was to go back in time and do the test, I would actually separate them further out, but equally, the test is done now and you can still get a gist of the sound quality differences. And in some ways, the fact that the microphones were touching each other and clicking, that's a test in itself, because the clicking wasn't so much apparent on the DJI microphone at all. And it wasn't really that noticeable on the Hollyland, but it was so noticeable on the one in the middle, which was the Amazon one. And because it's the one in the middle, it's going to be worse naturally because it's kind of getting it from both sides. But it was so much louder and so much more apparent whenever you do hear it. So that in itself is a test to show how the body of the microphone reacts to physical touch. Predictably speaking, the microphones obviously have a massive price difference between them, and the most expensive microphone amongst this test performed the best, whereas the cheapest performed the worst. So I guess at this point, it's down to you to how much you value these microphones and that sound quality difference. I personally would not even bother with the Amazon microphone, and that is because of the simple fact that there's too much noise suppression going on there. I plugged each microphone into each Apple device with no setting changes. So by default, the Amazon one is doing some level of audio processing where it's trying to mitigate the external sounds and just focus on the voice. There is actually a feature called precise audio or precise sound on that. So I guess that's what's doing that. I personally would prefer just to take the raw audio, and then if I need to, then I'll just do it in post. But I understand that most people doing content creation are just doing this phone, I just want to churn it out quickly. But my preference would still not to be to use that feature because it muffled and distorted the sound so much that it just sounded like you're underwater. The next one up is the Hollyland Lark M2, which is 10 times the cost of the Amazon microphones, but I still think it's worth the price. The audio comes out much more natural, much more clear. The build quality feels much better, and it's not as sensitive to physical touch. So if you are dressing up anything and then maybe like a piece of jewelry or a tie, it's not going to be as apparent as if something were to be knocking on the Amazon one. But for me personally, because I do content creation on the phone, professional cameras and so forth, I'm going to need something of the DJI mic level or above. And the reason why is because you can do onboard recording on the actual device itself. So if the signal drops out, you've got a backup piece of audio there. Same time, I can also connect a lavalier microphone to it and therefore hide the device a bit more discreetly and just have a much smaller footprint with the lavalier microphone clipped to somewhere. I'd also be able to connect something like a shotgun microphone just like this, boom it overhead, connect this into the transmitter, and then that be the microphone that it transmits. Whereas I wouldn't be able to do that on the Hollyland or this Amazon TikTok microphone. Where I appreciate the cost difference is massive compared to the cheapest one, which is £10, £20, depending if you get the single mic or dual mic setup. My opinion when it comes to buying technology is the simple fact that you buy once or buy twice. It's also the perception of pricing, because I look at things slightly differently. I don't look at items at the upfront cost. I look at them about actually how much they'll depreciate over time. So as an example, with the Amazon microphones being £10 to £20, I can't imagine you getting £10 to £20 back when you resell at some point. And if you were to sell them for like £10, £15, yeah, you could probably get, I guess, most of your money back and don't lose too much. But the likelihood of being able to sell such a cheap product when it's already cheap brand new, most people would probably just buy brand new. Whereas the Hollyland Lark M2, £150, £160, if you was to sell on the used market, it'll probably be like 120, 130. So really and truly the microphone, although you paid up front 150, 160, you're only really losing £30. Now £30 may be a lot for you, but the audio quality difference to me, that's where I value that £30 to £40. I would much rather lose that amount of money and gain much better audio quality. So in short, would I ever recommend the Amazon microphones? And that's a no. But you have the audio examples in the earlier part of the video, and then you can watch that, review that, and judge for yourself and what you feel is worth it for you. You just have to remember that audio is 50% of your content, and it's most people are going to be more tolerable for poor image quality than they would be for poor audio quality. So I hope those comparisons help for now. Let me know in the comments below which one that you would end up purchasing. And if you got through to this point of the video, cheers for watching.